Alright, in this video we're going to be working on configuring routing and remote access, virtual private network, and NPS network policies. We're going to be working with multiple network interface cards, we're going to be working with multiple subnets, configuring some firewall exceptions, installing routing and remote access, configuring some static routes, configuring a VPN server, and finally configuring the NPS network policies to control the VPN server. Let's get started. Alright, we will primarily be working with two computers, Work 1 and Work 2. They've both been configured with two network interface cards, as you can see right here, local area connection 1 and local area connection 2. The first thing we're going to do is be sure that both of these network interface cards are configured the way we want them to be. Alright, so click View Network Connections and right-click Local Area Connection, click Properties, go to Continue, and click IPv4 Properties. Alright, so we want this to go ahead and be 10.1. Leave the subnet mask and the network address the same. Well, the rest of the network address. Default gateway, we're not going to use one right now. And primary DNS server, let's just use 10.100. Click OK, and click Close. Right-click Local Area Connection 2, go to Properties, click Continue, IPv4, Properties. Alright, we're going to use a static IP address for this one. It was configured for DHCP, but we don't want that in this instance. We're going to do 192.168.11.1. Subnet mask. And again, we're not going to use a default gateway right now. Preferred DNS server, we'll just do 192.168.11.100. Click OK, or click Close. Alright, close that screen. Now let's go to Start, Administrative Tools, and Windows Firewall with Advanced Security. Click Continue. Alright, so first click Inbound Rules, then right-click Inbound Rules and select New Rule. We're going to do a custom rule. Click Next. This applies to all programs. Click Next. And for protocol type, what we want to put is ICMP v4. It's basically just the protocol used by ping requests and responses. So click Next. And we want this rule to apply to any local or remote IP address. And for those of you who are familiar with network appliances or network security appliances, this is nothing more than an extended access list. Accept these default values because we do want to allow the connection. Click Next. And we want this rule to apply in the domain, in the private sector, and in the public sector. Click Next. And we're going to name this Allow Lab Ping. Click Finish. Confirm that the ping rule appears right here and that it is set to enabled. And then we can close this screen for now. Alright, now in our Work 2 computer, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to go to Network Connections and configure our two network interface cards. Let's start with the first one. Go to Properties, click Continue, IPv4 Properties. Change this one to 11.2. Get rid of the default gateway. And for the preferred DNS server, let's do 11.100. Click OK, and click Close. Right-click the Area Connection 2, Properties, Continue, IPv4 Properties, and switch from DHCP to use the following IP address. We're going to do 192.168.12.2. Subnet mask, no default gateway, and don't even worry about the DNS server. Let it handle itself. Click OK, click Close. Alright, click Start, go to Administrative Tools and Windows Firewall. Click Continue. Click Inbound Rules and right-click Inbound Rules. Click New Rule. We're going to make a custom rule. Click Next. We want this to apply to all programs. Click Next. For protocol type, we are only dealing with ICMP v4, so essentially ping messages. Click Next. We want these to apply to any IP address. Click Next. And we do want to allow the connection. So for those who are familiar with access control lists, this is nothing more than an extended ACL. All right, we want this to apply to all domains. Click Next. And let's name this one Allow Lab Ping. Click Next. Click Finish. We can close this window. All right, let's switch back to the Work 1 computer and do some ping testing. Open up Command Prompt. And first, let's just ping the network interface cards connected directly to this computer. Anytime you're pinging a card or device that is directly connected, it should work. If not, there's a big problem or you've configured something incorrectly. So both of the network interface cards seem to be working correctly and they're configured the way we want them to be. Now let's try to ping the network interface cards of the other computer. So we're going to start with 11.2. That's functioning properly. Now the reason that we can ping the other computer's first network interface card is the fact that we have a network interface card that is in the same subnet on our virtual network. Now, if for some reason you can't ping the network card on the other computer, it's either because you've configured it incorrectly or if you're using a virtual network with virtual machines like I am, you don't have any control about the way that traffic is routed through the virtual network. And so it's sort of about order of operations and things like that. There's not a lot you can do except tweak it until it works the way you want it to. Now we can try to ping the other network interface card on that computer, but it's not going to work because we are not in the same subnet. We don't have an interface card in the same subnet, and we don't have a default gateway to send that traffic to. All right, let's switch to the Work 2 computer and do the same thing. We should get nearly identical results. First, we'll ping our own network interface cards, starting with 11.2. And as I stated before, these should work because they are directly connected. They are a part of this machine. If it can't ping its own components, there's a big issue. All right, so both of our network interface cards are correctly configured and we are able to ping them. Let's try to ping the Work 1 computer. We'll start with 11.1, and of course that's going to be successful because it is in the same subnet. Now, when we try to ping 10.1, it's not going to be successful because, again, we don't have a network interface card configured with an IP address that's in that same subnet, and we don't have a default gateway, so there's no way to reach successfully that host. All right, according to the ping test that we just performed, there are two network interface cards that cannot communicate with each other because they're in different subnets. Now, instead of adding more network interface cards just so we can have connections to the same subnets on these computers, what we're going to do is install the routing and remote access role on both of these computers. That way we can route traffic from one subnet to another subnet, and we don't have to use multiple network interface cards. Now let's start with Work 1. In the Server Manager window, double-click Roles. Click Add Roles. Click Network Policy and Access Services. Click Next. Observe. Click Next. Click the Routing and Remote Access Services checkbox. Click Next, and then click Install. Once the installation has completed, click Close. Now click Start, go to Administrative Tools, and go to Routing and Remote Access. Click Continue. Right-click Work 1 Local. Click Configure and Enable Routing and Remote Access. Click Next. Select Custom. Click Next. Place a check mark next to LAN routing. This is all we want to deal with right now. We can come back and do other things later. Click Next. Click Finish. the Start Service window will appear. Just click Start Service and then click Finish. Now confirm that there's no longer a red arrow next to Work 1, but there is a green one. Alright, still on the Work 1 computer, we're going to configure some routes. Just expand the Work 1 local node and navigate all the way down to static routes. Notice that we don't have any, so right-click static routes under IPv4 and click New Static Route. Now, for the interface, we want to use Local Area Connection 2. For the destination, we're going to type in the network portion of the IP address that we assigned to the NIC2 card of the even numbered computer. So that would be 192.168.12.0. So this is the destination network. The network mask is going to be the same, and the gateway is just going to be the IP address assigned to NIC2 of the Work 1 computer. So essentially, traffic that is wanting to pass through the NIC2 of this computer and is destined for the 192.168.12 network, that it's a /24 subnet, that's what this is, will in fact be routed through that very same interface. So click OK, and now we have our first static route. So destination, gateway, and the interface that we're applying this to. Alright, switch over to the Work 2 computer and use the same method we used before to install the routing and remote access role on this computer. Once you've installed it, go ahead and activate the routing and remote access service and start it. Then navigate down to static routes on this computer. Again, we need to add a new static route. Now for the interface, leave local area connection selected. For the destination, we want to put the network portion of the NIC1 card on the odd numbered computer, so the other computer. And we're using the same subnet mask for all of these addresses, just a /24. For the gateway, we're going to put the IP address of the network interface card 1 on this computer. Click OK, and let's look at these results here. So destination, the gateway to get to that destination, and the interface that this is applied to. Back on the Work 1 computer, let's try to ping the network interface card that we were unable to ping before. That would be 192.168.12.2, because we do not have a network interface card that is configured on that subnet. However, since we have the routing services role on here with a static route directing us to that network interface card, we can be successful. So it's working on the Work 1 computer. Let's switch to the Work 2 computer and see if we can go the other direction. 192 ping 192.168.10.1 because we don't have a network interface card on the .10 network. And this is also successful because of our static routes. Back on the Work 1 computer, let's look at configuring a VPN, a virtual private network. First thing we want to do is go to Start and Administrative Tools, down to Routing and Remote Access. Click Continue. Right-click the Work 1 local node, and click Disable Routing and Remote Access. Click Yes. Alright, now let's right-click and select Configure and Enable, stopping it, and we're going to restart it. Except this time, we're going to be setting up a remote access VPN. So click Next. Place a check mark next to VPN and click Next. Select Local Area Connection 2 and click Next. Now let's click from a specified range of addresses. Click Next. Click New. And for the start IP address, we're going to do 10.10.10.1. And for the ending IP address, let's do 10.10.10.50. And click OK, and click Next. Alright, we do not have a radius server at all right now, so let's just do No, use the routing remote access to authenticate connection requests. Click Next, and click Finish. Click OK, and click Finish. And we're done. Okay, now that we have our VPN server up and running, we want to configure an NPS network policy to make sure it's usable and functioning the way we want to. So click Start, go to Administrative Tools, and click Network Policy Server. Click Continue, expand Policies, go to Network Policies. Now by default we just have a big old deny right here, so pretty much nothing can get through right now. Let's right-click Network Policies and click New. We're going to name this policy Allow Administrators Remote Access. In the Type of Network Access Server, select Remote Access Server. Click Next. Under Specify Conditions, click Add. Select Windows Groups, click Add, and click Add Groups. Type in Domain Admins, click Check Names, then click OK. Click OK. And click Next. Stick with the Access Granted selection. Click Next. Let's accept the default authentication methods and click Next. Place a check mark next to Disconnect after the maximum idle time and set 15 minutes. Click Next. Accept the default selections and click Next. Finally, click Finish.